I'm honored to address such an obviously committed, hardworking, and honorable group of political and community leaders. This indeed is an impressive gathering. I've heard a lot about many of you, the kind of work that you're doing here, and Mimi, thank you for all the work that you've done in being such a great hostess for me here today. As a proudly liberal mayor, and I'm not at all afraid to use that term. I know a lot of you may not want to go by it. But we have a great liberal tradition in this country. Our Constitution is part of that liberal tradition. The values that we have as Americans are good liberal traditions. And as a proudly liberal mayor in the extremely conservative state, and unless you've been there, you have no idea what I'm talking about, that garnered President Bush his largest margin of victory in both of his elections, and where he currently and almost consistently, although I think for about a week Idaho was 1 percentage point ahead of us, his highest approval ratings, I have some insight into and a lot of sympathy for your situation as good Democrats in perhaps the most conservative county in the state of Washington. But I can tell you, getting good candidates, good people who will add dignity and respect to the party, and getting the good volunteers out there and the money to help make these races progress, it all builds over time, and it only means good things for the party, for our candidates, and certainly for our communities, our nation, and ultimately our world. So to all of you, just keep it up. Understand that you may have a few defeats here and there, but you're doing the right thing and for all the right reasons. The citizens of this great nation deserve a government that promotes our interests and that is accountable to our laws. Yet this Republican Congress, and a Congress, by the way, which has some Democrats that you can't distinguish a whole lot from some of the Republicans, and the Bush administration have consistently evinced a deliberate, flagrant, arrogant disrespect for the law and the common good. And it is time that we all stand up and tell the truth about it, that we face the truth and we get this across to the rest of the American people, because they haven't been hearing it, in large part because we haven't had the leadership that's had the courage, that's had the willingness to stand up against an insanely corrupt, arrogant administration and Congress. Rather than pursuing policies that benefit the American people and further the cause of justice and peace, many of our nation's political leaders have betrayed a craven captivity to a culture of corruption. We are here tonight to raise our voices out of deep concern for our nation and for our world, because that is exactly what true patriots do. I've heard a lot. 2 years in a row now, we've held large demonstrations, thousands of people coming out in Salt Lake City when President Bush has come to our city. This last time, he came with Condoleezza Rice and Donald Rumsfeld. And we're told by so many people that we're unpatriotic, that we're being un-American to stand up against this disastrous presidency and this complacent, complicit Congress. Patriotism is a love of nation, and when it's being led astray, when it's headed in the wrong direction by bad leadership, the only patriots are those who will stand up, take a stand, and call for a different direction. Patriots do speak up. and demand change when their nation is suffering tragically from corrupt, incompetent, destructive leadership. Jack Abramoff is only the most infamous constituent of the culture of corruption that has festered in our nation's capital during the Bush administration and under this Republican Congress. Abject dishonesty and calculated arrogance toward the rule of law extend throughout the Bush administration and this Republican-dominated Congress. Just consider House Speaker Dennis Hastert's net worth quadrupled over the past 4 years. He's supposed to be a public servant, back there spending his time and dedicating what he has to the public good. His net worth quadrupled over the past 4 years, primarily because of a vast increase in the value of a property he owns in Illinois. That increase in value largely due to the land's proximity to a freeway project that he pushed through the United States Congress. Do you think he ever took to the floor and told everybody, oh, by the way, this is the consequence to me if you appropriate the funds for that freeway project? Bill Frist, the Senate Majority Leader, sold all of his stock in the hospital giant HCA 1 month before its shares tumbled a full 9% in value, owing to a weak earnings report. This was a family business that he'd been involved in before he went to the United States Senate. Think of that, selling all of his stock in this company 1 month before the stock plummeted by 9%. Frist said he sold his shares of HCA, and by the way, he did personally say you've got to sell these shares, even though it was ostensibly held in blind trusts. And he said that he did that, sold the stock, to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, even though the Senate Ethics Committee had twice approved of his holding of the stock. So that justification rings pretty hollow, especially in light of the fact that only 1 month passed between the time of the sale and the 9% decrease in the value. And it was a lot of money. Vice President Dick Cheney, his holdings of Halliburton stock made him party to one of the most massive conflicts of interest in the history of American politics. And I have to wonder, where is the outrage? I don't care what party you belong to. Where is the outrage when the Vice President of the United States is in a position of this kind of conflict of interest and the American people and our troops have taken a huge beating as a result?